Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom with today's Behind the Headlines. We want to spend some time today drilling down on what came out of an independent investigation of the Denver Sheriff's Department. An independent report by outside consultants was released this week. That 300-page report cites 14 major findings and 277 recommendations to fix the problems. Problems at the Denver County Jail certainly no secret, but the dysfunction revealed by these independent consultants was worse than most expected. Denver Post reporter Noelle Phillips has broken many of the stories about the jail. She's read every single page of this report. Give us a quick, fun reading, right?
Yeah, 300 pages.
Yeah, give us a quick rundown at kind of the scope of the problems that were discovered.
Well, the problems are deep and widespread within the Sheriff's Department, and the consultant said change needs to happen at almost every level inside the two jails the city runs. Everything from needing a new sheriff from outside of the department to better training for deputies and a new computer system to manage the jail.
And all the way down to the underwear they wear, right?
Yes.
The inmates wear?
Yes. They even got as detailed as saying, you know, it should be boxers, not briefs for inmates.
Okay. What's their reason for that? I'm just curious.
It's easier to hide things in briefs as they're tighter.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, so we've talked about some of the problems, which I know the list is long.
Right.
But let's talk about some of the 277 recommended fixes.
Sure. First off, hire a new sheriff and go outside the department to do it. The city's going to be called on to spend a whole lot of money to replace the technology. For example, when you ask them, like, how many times have you used a taser, they can't find the reports to count the taser incidents because they're on paper and shoved in drawers. The consultant compared it to a 19th century Dickens novel when it comes to technology.
And also allegations of perhaps kind of letting use of force cases fall to the wayside and not.
Right, use of force is essentially not investigated. Internal affairs, they've done a lot of work to get internal affairs caught up, but there's still a long way to go. Deputy training, for example, deputies are supposed to make rounds every 30 minutes, but you don't want to do it every half hour on the half-hour mark because inmates know to expect it. Well, when the consultants went around the jail and they started asking deputies, what are the policies for rounds and how are you supposed to do it? They couldn't get consistent answers, and deputies didn't always know what exactly they were supposed to do. And that's like, in a sense, it's basic corrections right there, running the jails, doing inmate rounds. Mm-hmm. There's a problem with contraband. During the time the consultants were in the jail, they found heroin, homemade hooch, inappropriate photographs. We don't probably have to ask exactly what they mean by that. And one of the things the consultants pointed out there is deputies are not searched when they come to work.
So therefore they
indicated that deputies could be a source of the contraband coming into the jail.
And independent contractors coming in, maintenance workers,
right?
Things like
there was
that.
no accounting system for tools that they might get out while they're doing some kind of maintenance project inside the jail, and the inmates might have access to them. Nobody's counting those. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, page after page of things that need to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it too is big, like changing the culture of the department.
Right. We were talking off camera about how these deputies are really trained to be out in the field, dealing with people in conflict and things like that. And actually being behind the walls of the jail and working inside is a completely different skill set, right?
Correct. The consultants described it as changing from a warrior mentality to a guardian mentality. So the jail Sheriff's Department brags a lot about how they train their deputies on crisis intervention, and that's a really good thing. But when the consultants looked at the training hours, twice as many deputies had spent time training on tasers and other ways to use force rather than de-escalating a crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big point there. Mm-hmm. And the nunchucks, right? Nunchucks?
Yeah, the consultant said we really shouldn't even be using nunchucks in a jail.
Okay. So for people who may not have been following this story as closely, I know you've broken a lot of the news on this. The consultants were paid $295,000 to do this report. Why was it so important to bring in outside consultants to do this?
Yeah, problems in the jail hit ahead back in the summer in the Jamal Hunter case. Jamal Hunter was an inmate who was choked by deputies and also beaten and had his genitals scalded by fellow inmates when deputies weren't paying attention. So there was a settlement in that case. Throughout the case and the lead up to the settlement, the judge and presiding over it had a lot of concerns and had said he thought a federal DOJ investigation ought to be held. So this part of the settlement there said the city needed to do a review The mayor, Michael Hancock, said, all right, let's do it. Let's bring in these consultants. I want a deep dive into the sheriff's department. And so really a lot of this is to keep the federal U.S. Department of Justice off their backs.
And speaking of Mayor Hancock, he says he does not disagree with one piece of information
Correct.
in this report. He's under a lot of pressure, isn't he?
Right. A lot of people are going to be looking already. The ACLU of Colorado has responded to this. The Colorado Latino Forum has said they will be watching. Of course, we will be watching at the Denver Post. And I talked to a corrections expert today who does some federal monitoring, who said the city almost has more liability now that they have this report. They know what they have to do, and there are no excuses for not doing it.
And in all fairness, would we find the same type of thing, do you think, if they were to investigate and do a consultancy at a similar sized city?
Maybe. I mean, a lot of jails have gotten in federal trouble, Cook County, Illinois, New Orleans, Louisiana. So it's not uncommon for corrections and county jails to have problems.
And internal affairs, anything else that came out of there that we haven't talked about?
With internal affairs, you know, they hired a former Arapahoe County Sheriff, Grayson Robinson, this year they had a huge backlog of hundreds of cases to help them kind of get through that backlog of cases. And that was a good thing, but the consultants say you still need it's not clear what cases go to IA. The sergeants who are tagged to be investigators are just told, oh, you're going to be an IA investigator. And so they said you need to write like job qualifications and application process so you get people in there who are trained. They need more training on how to investigate, because Denver Sheriff's deputies don't investigate. They're not investigators, not police officers. And so they really don't have a lot of interviewing and questioning skills that they've developed over the course of a career. And so their investigators actually need to be trained on that.
All right, great work, Noelle Phillips. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And we want to let you know that you can check out the entire report, all 300 pages. Look at it yourself. We've posted it on our website. You can find it by clicking on Noelle's story. That'll do it for today's Behind the Headlines. I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom for DPTV.